Cheers, my dears, and hello, my loves. Welcome to the virtual book reading of my latest book, Live Loud and Suffer in Silence, which I published last year on the 10th of July in 2020. I welcome you. I'm glad that you're here. If you're here for the premiere, feel free to ask me a question in the chat box on your right, as long as you're watching from a computer, and I think below if you watch from a mobile device, but I'm not sure. But yeah, feel free to ask your questions in English or German in the chat box, and I'm gonna answer them because I will be watching this reading together with you. So I'm there on the other side of the screen. If you're here after the premiere and you watch it way later, don't worry, I welcome you just as much. Feel free to drop your questions in the comments below and I will get notified and try to answer them. Other than that, find me on social media or visit my website, ginalaventura.com. If you want to contact me, I'm sure you're gonna find a way to do so. Just a quick note, it's the first time that I film in this format, so if I sometimes do not look straight into the camera, that's because the screen is on the right now, so it's a bit irritating, but I hope you bear with me, you know, not so much digital native as I should be probably. So if I slip over my own words or whatever, you know, everybody's praising authenticity, so I'm gonna embrace it right now. And I hope you do too. Yeah, make yourself comfortable, grab a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, or a beer. I'm gonna try to keep it a little bit structured, can't promise anything. But yeah, so I thought about telling you a little bit about the book and the donation plan that's connected to it. And I would like to read some excerpts of it to you, and I hope you enjoy the ride. So first of all, I would like to show you the book so that you get an impression. That's the cover, that's the back. The cover design was made by Norman from N Graphics Design, a graphic designer, photographer, and a filmmaker that I work with a lot for our creative projects. We met each other, I think, 3 or 4 years ago. Norman, please correct me. I hope you're there. Please help me out. And we've done some projects together, and so I contacted him and I said, listen, I'm writing my second book and I need a book cover. What do you think? And so it was a really nice process to finally find the way to this cover, which is quite explicit to some. So there are people who say, oh wow, this is gross. But yeah, I think it says a lot. You can have a look at it. I'm gonna link the Amazon link and everything you need to know in the description box, so feel free to take a closer look at that. I'm really happy with the cover, and we also got a lot of positive feedback from the people who said it's a bam in your face cover, so that this would make me stop in a bookstore and take a closer look at it. And basically that is what you want from a cover, I suppose. Some of the stories are quite old, at least some poems are even more than 8 years old right now. So I wrote a short story and a poem around about 8 years ago, and I never published them, neither on social media nor on my blog nor somewhere else, because I took a closer look at them and I thought, sorry, I thought you belong in a book. I still don't know which book, but you will be published in a book, and they made it into this collection of stories. So basically, let me read the blurb to you so that you just get an impression, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it. So the blurb reads, take your torch and brace yourself. It might get dark when you dive deep. These texts are not to... Sorry. These texts are not about the sunny side of life. Rather, they deal with the scenes that are staged in the shadows, that don't fit into tiny polished squares to be presented on the virtual pinboard of one's life. These are the stories that rarely are the first ones you tell someone on a second date, the ones that you try to hide, the ones that rarely see the sunlight, the ones that aren't easy to narrate, the ones that yet and still are part of life. This book aims at shifting the untold stories from the shadows into the light, because they are worth it, because they need to be accepted as part of life, because they deserve to be told. A compelling collection of 13 pieces of prose framed by thematically linked lines of poetry and resonating rhymes. Note, a certain percentage of your purchase will be donated to local mental health institutions. Thanks for your support. So basically that is what you find when you read the blurb, and I hope you stumble as much over the words as I do. As the author, I should know better, but what can you do? I'm just human. So basically everything is said here. So you have 13 short stories, and they are framed by poems. So basically how to read this book, I structured it in a manner that you start with a poem which gives you a glimpse of what is following in the short story that is to come. So let's say you read a poem about loss. Tendency is quite high that the short story that follows will be dealing with the same topic. So either it's thematically linked or from the emotion that you feel, so emotion-wise linked to the story that's going to come. And you can distinguish poems and short stories in the table of contents. I'm going to show you, because the poems are written in italics and the short stories are not written in italics. There are some loose or not connected poems in it as well. And yeah, so there's a donation plan linked to it. 25% of my earnings from every book purchase, be it ebook or paperback, will be donated to mental health institutions. And Norman and I also worked together because I had a dream connected to this book project, which was taking quotes from it and designing them in like putting them into a beautiful design and have them on clothes and baseball caps, bags, jackets. And so thank you, Norman. We did that. My dream came true. Just to show you one example, of course, I'm wearing my own. So this reads, "The heart's a stranger we once knew." And that's a quote from the book. And we also have other quotes in beautiful design. You can buy them via my spread shop. I'm going to link that in the description box as well. And here again, 25% of my earnings from every purchase will be donated to mental health institutions. So basically local institutions in the area that I live in that help people with mental health issues, that go through crisis, that struggle with certain life events. And so with every purchase, you can support this and you do something good for other people that need help. Yeah, so that's the general information, I think. There is a disclaimer. I'm gonna put that into the video as well. Just to make it clear, these, as the blurb says, these stories are not a walk in the park. You know, reading this book is not a walk in the park, and to be honest, writing it wasn't either. So I'm going to put the general disclaimer that is also the first page of the book, is a disclaimer, is a trigger warning. I'm going to put that in the video. And whenever I read something, I will also put in a slide that roughly tells you the topic, what the story or the poem is dealing with. So if that topic is triggering to you, you can just fast forward to the next story and just read the title slide and see whether that topic is less triggering to you, because I want you to enjoy this reading and not, feel overwhelmed. Feel free to stop whenever you need to. Feel free to come back whenever you want to. As said, these stories are not about the sunny side of life, but more to that in a minute, because I'm gonna show you the disclaimer in a second, and I would like to read the intro to you so that you get an impression of what the whole book is dealing with, and then I'm gonna read some excerpts to you. So some poems, some stories. Obviously, I'm not going to read the whole book to you, because, I would still love you to purchase it and to read it and to support the donation plan, of course. But yeah, feel free to ask questions and feel free to drop out whenever you need to. Your mental health is important. So, as you saw, I'm still gonna read it if you hadn't had the time to read it, if it was too fast. So the first page is the disclaimer, and it's important. It was really important to me to put that as the first page so that people know what they're dealing with once they open the book. So the disclaimer reads, "Attention and a little spoiler. In this book, you will encounter characters that suffer. You will find prose and poetry about topics like pain, loss, death, identity crisis, rape, depression, burnout, disorders, suicide, loneliness, rage, and other intense emotions and life-influencing events. If you suffer from severe mental health issues or have gone through a tough time recently and are easily affected by the events taking place in fictional stories, I urge you to be careful. I'm not a psychologist, therapist, or in any other way authorized or competent in those fields to tell you what's recommendable for you and what's not. If you are unsure whether this book might make your issues exacerbate or not, I recommend letting someone else read it and asking them for their opinion. Also, I'd recommend to stop reading immediately when it's increasing your issues and goes beyond being emotionally moved by the stories. If you have been affected by any of the topics discussed in this book, please contact befrienders.org. You may find the support you're looking for from national websites online or some closer local organizations. If you need support, please search and ask for it." And that's important, if you hadn't had the time to read it, that's why I read it to you. I'm not a therapist. I didn't study psychology or anything like it. Of course, I can tell you these stories are moving, but I think there are many novels or stories out there that are moving, but especially with the topics that are part of this book, like depression, rape, violence, death, loss, grief. These are quite triggering stories, or they have a potential to be a trigger for people who already deal with certain issues, and I just wanted to make them aware because it's important, and so that you know which road you're gonna take when reading this book. And as said, please, if you need help and support, go and ask for it. It's a huge topic, it's a huge topic. There's a lot of spotlight put on the topic of mental health issues right now, which I think is a good thing on the one hand. On the other hand, even that can be triggering in itself again. But I think it's good that the taboo around going to therapy is not as present as it used to be, and that people go and seek the help that they need. So I just named one website because I found it to be internationally, and as I'm a self-published author, I don't know each and every single website of each and every single country, but this website has listed other websites and telephone numbers from different countries. So you can select your country and the area you live in, and maybe you find more information. But please, 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 if you need support and help, go and ask for it. It's not a shame. Yeah, so that was important. Cheers to that. And because I guess many people would like to know what made you write this book? Why did you pick this topic? At least these are quite common questions that I receive. That's why I decided to read the intro to you, because basically most of the questions are answered in the intro already. So I'm just going to read that to you, and if you have any further questions, feel free to either put them in the chat box or in the comments below. So first there's a dedication. By the way, never gift a book without a dedication. So even if you buy this book for a friend, you're supposed to write something into it. You know, I don't know whether it's a German thing, but we say you never gift a book without a written dedication into it. But also I, as the author, dedicated this book to all the struggling souls, the beast-beating bold ones, the ones that feel lonely and lost. Don't give up, persist, persevere, hold on at all cost. Trust in the power of new beginnings. Seeming loss can be a winning. Tear down and build anew, change perspective, switch the view. There's gonna be brighter days, trust the sun. Inhale, exhale, head up, move on. And then you have the table of contents. As said before, the titles written in italics are poems, and the ones that are not written in italics are the short stories. So the intro, you will find the blurb in it, or the other way around. I took the blurb from the intro, to be honest. But yeah, let's start. Intro. Take your torch and brace yourself. It might get dark when you dive deep. The idea for this book started with the working title, Pain, Loss and Grief. Not a very fancy cherry pie type of title, huh? Well, that's okay, because the stories contained in this book are not about the sunny side of life. Rather, they deal with the scenes that are staged in the shadows, that don't fit into tiny polished squares to be presented on the virtual pinboard of one's life. These are the stories that rarely are the first ones you tell someone on a second date, the ones that you try to hide, the ones that rarely see the sunlight, the ones that yet and still are part of life. The ones that shape, the ones that have power, the ones that often don't fit into a linear narration of beauty and success, the ones that aren't easy to narrate. But every element of narration can, when positioned differently, be one thing or the other, right? Take a knight, a princess, a dragon, and a fight. Now we have the option to create a heroic epos following the knight's quest in the medieval tradition. We can write a romance, a tragedy, and yes, even a comedy, with the same elements. This book aims at shifting the untold stories from the shadows into the light, because they are worth it, because they need to be accepted as part of life, because they deserve to be told. Because I feel the urge to revolt and rebel against the commonly practiced way of displaying all the positive things and hiding the dark sides, which led to the title Live Loud and Suffer in Silence. Because apparently everybody wants to see the success, the positive attitude accompanying this story of success and abundance. We want to be inspired and uplifted by the stories. We want to have the same. We want to know how to get there. And that's okay. That's curiosity and the will to learn. Beautiful. But rarely ever is there just one side to a story. Rarely ever is success based just on lucky coincidences and people being in the right place at the right time. Often there's a rocky road to the smooth pavement, a shadow to the sun. Yes, there is pain, loss, and grief to joy, happiness, and laughter. But who wants to see that? Don't get me wrong, neither do I claim that there is no one out there acknowledging the hardships that now successful and seemingly happy people had to go through, nor do I claim that you are one of them. You wouldn't have bought this book if you were, I presume. And beware, I do not claim that this is an absolute necessity to go through hell in order to deserve a seat in heaven. That's the flip side. Some people seem to feel the need to tell a dark chapter from their life in order to justify them now sitting in the sun. As if you had to earn it. As if your story lost value if there wasn't a dark side to it. And that often leads to people re-narrating the events of their life in a manner that renders a story of depression a marketing tool. A story of rejected love becomes a story of a toxic and abusive relationship. A temporary state of not feeling well in one's body gets labeled a disorder. And that's another danger arising from the way in which we label, value, and judge the stories told. It's not the narrators being bad people for re-narrating some events. It's us forcing an exaggeration onto the people that are putting themselves out there, which, by the way, is a brave act in itself. Because how dare a person focus on their story of success and aim to share advice with us without narrating about the rocky road they had to take? How dare they be happy without earning it by having gone through hell before? It's a paradox I have difficulties getting my head around. On the one hand, we want to see all the shiny sunlight smiles, wondering why we haven't made it to Santorini yet. And on the other hand, we crave to see the dark spots on a blank canvas. Yes, we want the uplifting stories, but it seems as if we also need to know the downsides to them to make them reliable, relatable, authentic, human. Which is fine. It just forces people to re-narrate certain life events, either to paint them a little darker and dramatize them, or to polish them up to perfection when really they were some of the most difficult times in their lives, which they'd rather store away in a box, never to be opened again. Often it even becomes a mixture of both, and the story now seems to have become a common plot. Person pursuing something, downfall, dark times, getting out of it stronger than before. Sorry. Idealizing a bloody shit time as the turning point in their lives, now shining brilliantly, marketing to us that if they can do it, we can do it too. And zup, we're back in comparison mode and wonder why we didn't make it from the dark side to the daydream yet. Don't get me wrong, I admire people who are brave enough to put themselves and their stories with all the colors out there. And I think we all should. All I'm saying is that the human mind seems to be conditioned in a paradox that we often don't perceive as such. And this in turn often leads to comparisons that rather shouldn't be made. You don't have to go through hell in order to see heaven, and it's perfectly fine to walk on a pretty pavement. You don't have to suspect everyone narrating their dark times of being a hypocrite. Neither do you have to be in awe of those people who have gone through hard times and hope to experience likewise in order to validate your message. I urge you to just be aware and attentive, to honor the bravery of the people who put themselves out there, to respect their privacy if they don't narrate everything that led to them being where they are today, and to stop searching for a crack in your biography if there just is none. Or if there is one, to maybe use it as a chance to grow, to ask for help when you need it, to read and consume things that don't leave you with a feeling of not being good, pretty, thin, intelligent, beautiful, worthy, insert adjective, enough, but that motivate you. This, by the way, does not mean to not read the stories that sit uncomfortably in your chest and create an itching somewhere deep inside. No. Sometimes we have to sit with the uncomfortable thoughts, the itch, because sometimes they open doors to new perspectives. But we don't need to read and consume content that gives us a constant bad feeling about ourselves. All I'm saying is, take care of yourself, in whichever manner possible and necessary. And if it means not reading this book, then don't read it. Love, Gina. So that was the intro, and I hope that answered most of the questions, why I wrote this book, what the aim of the book is. And it's not telling so much about the stories that are contained in it, but I think it gives a certain impression of the purpose of the book. If you have further questions, feel free to ask. So I'm going to read to you Familiar Face, the poem on page 26, connected to the story Attic Apartment, which follows. So to give you an impression what I mean with thematically or emotionally linked poems to the stories. Yeah, let's just go. Familiar Face. And I'm looking around, searching for a familiar face, but there's no face to know, no one to recognize, because I'm a stranger and I'm lost in space. I'm not part of this world, I don't belong in this environment, and still, I'm searching for something familiar, a pair of eyes to connect with, something that resembles me, and that I can mirror back. But there's no one to be found, not a hint to trace. There's no one to connect, and no familiar face. So that's the poem on the left side, and then comes the story Attic Apartment, which is prose, not poetry. Attic Apartment. In her small attic apartment, everything had its place. Everything belonged somewhere. The house keys in the wooden bowl right on the sideboard in the tiny entry hall. Below the mirror, she used to check her looks one last time before leaving the apartment. After a long day of work, she would come home, open the door, let the keys slide into the bowl, untie her shoelaces, and put her shoes on the mat on the left to the sideboard. That was their place. She would hang her jacket on the hooks at the back of the entry door and walk over to the kitchen, right hand touching the knob to heat the oven plate with a pot of water on it, left hand reaching for a big mug in the cupboard. There's this saying that the most intelligent people have a tendency to be chaotic. Thus, one would have to consider her quite stupid. Her best friend told her that her chaotic mind was enough to make up for the tidy apartment. She wasn't neurotic. For her, this order in putting things where they belong had a meditative quality. These were no neurotic habits. These were rituals that helped her find stability in an unstable world. They told her the day was done and now it was time to take her mind off work and onto other things. After having poured the hot water into the mug, she observed the tea bag swimming in it for a few seconds. Then she walked over to the bedroom, sat in front of the makeup stand and started taking her earrings off. They belonged in the jewelry box she had inherited from her grandmother. The necklace would stay around her neck. She never took it off. While putting her watch into the box meant for it, where a mechanism would gently rock it back and forth to keep it going, she was well aware of herself performing these rituals. She looked into the mirror and smiled at the thought of her father, who used to say that order was also connected to laziness. When everything has its place, you don't have to search for hours to find it, and believe me, I'm too lazy to search. She must have been 6 years old when he said that, but it had stuck with her ever since. Hence, if you ever asked her for an item, there would be 3 places at max she would have to search. If it wasn't there, she didn't have it. Everything had its place. Everything belonged. except for herself. There were more than 3 places she had been searching for herself, but in vain. She didn't belong. She hadn't found her place. But she wasn't lazy. She kept on searching. So let me know what you think. Feel free to give me feedback on the stories, on the poems. I'm sorry for me slipping over my own words, but you know, it's also been a while since I last read it, and since I last read the stories and the poems aloud, which I, by the way, do. I do read my own texts for myself, but also aloud to practice, especially for book readings like this. But it's been a while for the simple reason that, as said, writing the book wasn't a walk in the park. And no, my thought was to do this reading way earlier, but I underestimated the amount of energy and nerves it would cost me to literally to write this book. Because you have to imagine, I do not just write about the character. I feel myself into each and every single character. So for the moment I'm writing it, I am this person, if that makes sense. Like I push myself to go through everything that I established in the plot. So even if there are more than one character in the story, which is often the case, I am all the characters. I'm the mother, I'm the friend, I'm the protagonist, I'm the villain, I'm the victim, I'm the sad one, I'm the lucky one. I am every character that I write for the moment I'm writing them, and that really takes its toll on your emotions as a writer. I bet there are other writers who have other methods, but to me, right now, that's the most authentic way of writing that I personally can produce. And it's important to me to write in an authentic manner so that you as readers can connect to the stories, to the events taking place, to the characters. So yeah, it was definitely worth it, but it was also exhausting and strenuous, and so I couldn't do all the advertising and readings and sneak peeks into the book as soon and as much as I wanted to, for the simple reason I cannot write about mental health and then neglect my own, right? So it was more important to get back on track for myself, to now be able to do it bit by bit and in a pace that is good for me. Because I'm also planning to write a German version of it. It's not a direct translation because I cannot translate the poems word by word. That doesn't work. So I'm planning to write the German version of it. I haven't fully started yet. There are some poems that I already wrote and saved. So that's just a copy-paste mode. But yeah, I also need to regain energy to really sit down and produce the German version of it, because it means once again going through the whole process. So I hope you understand why the information about the book comes in bits and pieces and in a pace that might seem slow. But yeah, nevertheless, I hope this book is here to stay, and I hope even if you read it in 3 years, you know, that it's still going to give you something. And the donation plan will be kept up, like current status, I will keep it up forever. So even if you buy it in 10 years, 25% of my earnings will go to local mental health institutions, just like with the clothing line in my spread job. It's the same. Yeah. So anything else? I don't know. Other than that, I decided I'm gonna read another poem and another short story to you. And Then we'll see maybe some of the loose, maybe another one. Let's see where we're going. The next poem I'm going to read to you is Living Beyond Existence on page 156. And the connected short story is called Dear Mary Lou. Trigger warning, the topic will be bullying. So, the poem, Living Beyond Existence. Behind all those pretty polished shiny squares, there are lives of people that do dare to live. Beyond perfected imagery, that truly dare to be. Rather short poem. Now the story, the prose. Dear Mary Lou. Dear Mary Lou, probably you don't even remember me, or if you do, I will just be one of the memories you wish to forget. I'm connected to a time in your life that you might want to forget. Or maybe not. Maybe you grew from it, as I hope you did. But I could understand if you remembered me as just another one that didn't help you when you were tortured. Mentally, psychologically, each day, every day. What a torture it must have been for you, what a dreadful walk to school. What might happen today? Maybe I'll be lucky and today no one is going to say anything. Maybe today I can just follow the lessons without being bothered and bullied. How probable is that though? It hasn't been like that for years. These or similar thoughts must have been your constant companions. Each day, every day. Probably your nerves were under constant tension, your awareness on high alert, your walls too high to be climbed and yet bombarded and bruised. Each day, every day. Why do I suspect that? How do I come to that assumption, you ask? Because I know what it feels like. Yes, you heard correctly. I know what it feels like. Probably you don't believe me, but how could you know? After our classes were thrown together, we were the new ones, and you didn't know anything about us, and we didn't know anything about you, and tried to understand the group dynamics going on in this new environment we were thrown into. Quite quickly it became clear which position was yours, and it bugged me. See, before I go into more detail, I want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you ended up being in this position in the first place, but moreover, I'm sorry for not having helped you more. I'm sorry that I haven't been the person for you that I would have needed years before. The person that takes a stand for you, that calls the others out on their bullshit, the one that defends and protects you, the one that if necessary goes to the teachers and urges them to do something, to not stay silent, to not let it pass, but to intervene, to back you up, like I should have done too. But sometimes I wonder whether you would have even wanted that. I remember how frightened I was when the adults wanted to speak to my teachers about the whole case, and instead of seeing it as a chance to improve the situation, the only thing I could think of was, it's just gonna make it worse. So I rejected any help, while at the same time wishing for help. Or better, for just one day everything miraculously disappearing and going back to normal. So I don't know whether you would have wanted my help, but I'm sorry for never having asked you. I should have been better, and I should have taken you aside, told you, hey, I see how the others are treating you and it's not fair. Do you want my help? But I didn't. It was hard getting through to you, and I don't blame you for it. I totally understand that. And I admit, probably I was also afraid of ending up in the same situation that I had just overcome. I hope you can forgive a stupid teenager for being caught up in that fear, as I do have my difficulties forgiving myself. Maybe your heart is more generous than mine. I do hope so. I want you to know that it wasn't your fault. None of it. I have no bloody clue how and why they started bullying you, but whatever it was, they had no right to do so in the first place. I hope you know that. Whatever it is that you might have done to draw their derision, it wasn't your mistake, your fault, and they had no right to make fun of you once the joke was over. They had no right torturing and tormenting you for all the years to come until your marks wouldn't allow you to stay anymore, and instead of aiming for A grades, you went to trade school and opted for an apprenticeship. I have no idea whether you would have made it through A grades, but I bet your marks would have been better had your performance in school not been ridiculed and blocked by the bullies. I knew you preferred telling the teacher you had forgotten your homework and getting bad comments and marks for it than reading the 3 to 5 pages of homework you had actually prepared just to give them ammunition to shoot you again. I remember so many small moments that just add up to a big bloody pool of bullying bullshit that they exposed you to. I hope you've forgotten more of them, or all of them, but I doubt it. Unfortunately, I assume all these moments have burned themselves deep into your memory. And I know there must have been more than the ones that I can remember. But you know what? These scars that it left, they don't mean you're broken. They mean that you were brave. And you know what? You were braver than every one of us. You were braver than the bullies and braver than those that didn't help you. The ones that stayed silent. You were even braver than the teachers who never intervened, even when it was obvious what it was going on. But I bet their pedagogical teacher training told them to let teenagers fight their fights as it makes them grow and only intervene when it turns into an extreme. Who can blame them? They only saw the surface, the tip of the iceberg. In the position you were in, probably you felt weak and as if the others were stronger or braver than you. Like a force you couldn't fight, never conquer. A fight you could never win. They blamed and bullied you for everything you were and everything you weren't. You couldn't make it right. Every step seemed to be the wrong one. But I want you to know that actually, you were the strong one, the brave one. I tell you something, none of those bullies could have ever withstood what you withstood. They would have been bitching and whining had somebody insulted them and hurt them as they insulted and hurt you. They would have run to their mamas and papas and told them to talk to the head teacher, change schools or whatever, because these poor creatures would not have been able to endure this torture. Each day, every day. And they kept on torturing you and making you the object of their attacks in order to distract from their own insecurities that might have provided the others with a target. They were fearful cowards, afraid of what might happen once you weren't there to take all their bullshit, believe me. I hope you already knew that, but it's important that you know. And I want you to know that I admire your strength. You were like bamboo. You bent, but you didn't break. You're not broken. I don't know whether you ever told your parents about what happened at school or what your answer was when they asked you, "How was school today?" Or whether they asked you in the first place. I hope they did, and I hope you were provided with the support you deserved. The support you lacked at school, that you didn't get from the ones remaining silent and biting their tongues instead of standing up for justice. Like me. Also, I hope that your start at trade school gave you a new chance, as you were a blank canvas for them and you started with a clean slate. I hope you were able to take that chance and use it for the better. I hope you found friends there, true friends. And I hope you learned to trust again after all these years of broken promises, false apologies, and intrigues and scheming. I hope you learned to trust yourself and believe in yourself and to protect yourself from any harm that somebody else might have aimed to do to you. I hope you somehow managed to make your peace with the past in whichever manner. Whether you just cut ties with all the fellow pupils and never wanted to see any of them again, talk to them again, or whether you just kept 1 or 2 contacts and forgot about the others. You know, there is this approach that the forgiveness you give to others is something that you don't do for them, but for yourself, as it is supposed to free you. To be honest, I could totally understand if you still hated all the bullies and even all the silent ones. If you just hated us all. I hope you don't, as hate is quite a destructive force and I wouldn't wish it to be something you carry in your ribcage each day, every day. But I could understand if you despised all of us and if you didn't have one positive thought or wish for any of your fellow pupils stored somewhere in your heart. But what I do believe is that you can still make peace with the past even if you haven't forgiven everyone completely. Have I forgiven the ones that bullied me? Probably not completely. I made allowances for immaturity, puberty, insecurities, and peer pressure to raise a little kind of understanding for their behavior. But claiming I had full understanding for their bullying bullshit behavior would just be a plain lie, seriously. I will never understand the thrill of torturing someone, of breaking someone. It just never made me feel superior if I forced someone into an inferior position. But I managed to come to the point that I wish them all well. It was a long journey, and on the way I had revengeful thoughts like, one day I'll be on top and I'm gonna dedicate my biggest achievement to those motherfuckers who made me grow stronger. But in time I realized that this would mean I'd still give them so much power that they actually never deserved and never should have had in the first place. So the older I got, the more I realized by letting go, I deprived them of their power and position, and now I just wish them well. I hope they are all happy and living their lives as they wish to. I'm not happy if somebody tells me that one of them is struggling or has lost their job. Neither am I deeply touched and affected by that. I just hope that their situation is going to turn out for the better. But honestly, it doesn't touch me to the core. I wish them all well and hope for the best, but I don't have the slightest interest in their lives. If someone tells me how well they are and that they are raising a happy family, I say, oh, good for them, and I do mean it. But again, it doesn't touch me. I have no drive or curiosity to know anything about their lives, to compare theirs to mine, to compete with them, to outdo them, to win. There is no fight anymore. The war is over. But let's be honest, some triggers might remain. Seeing a little child getting bullied will move something inside of you, I guess, might even enrage you. At least that's how I tend to react. The best thing I can hope for is that we both don't let this trigger overpower us, but that we get to be the person that we needed when we were in that spot. And that if anyone ever tries to put you into a similar position and makes you feel like you're back to teenage nightmares, you manage to rise up and stand up for the girl you once were and that would have needed and deserved protection. And that you'll be able to protect and defend yourself. Dear Mary Lou, I hope you found friends, real friends, good friends, that never make you feel like back in those days, that accept and love you exactly the way you are. And I hope you found love, true love, unconditional love. I hope those years back then didn't taint your trust in your relationships for many years to come, although I know how unlikely that might be. I hope you haven't kept your walls too high to be climbed by truly loving and caring people, or that you set the bar so low that every sneaky, insecure idiot could enter your life. I know these scars are more than skin deep, that these bastards never thought for 1 second about how much they bend and break another human being for the next decade or two, or for the rest of their lives. I know it takes a lot of time, effort, willpower, blood, sweat, and many, many tears to loosen the knots those events have inflicted on you. but I also do believe that you always had everything it takes to work through it, and I hope you did. Either alone or with the help of loving, caring, or professional people. You deserve healing and all the time and effort it needs. If, in contrast to all the hopes I harbor for you, you find yourself in a repetitive routine of always bonding with the wrong people that rather stand you up than standing up for you, that rather lower your self-esteem than lifting you up, I urge you to take all the courage contained in your core and let go of it. All of it. Get the help you need and deserve, work through it, cry through it, scream through it. It's growing pains, believe me. And you will come out alive on the other side, I promise. Better than before. You owe it to yourself and the little girl inside your chest to level up and to break through the toxicity of this ever-recurring relationship roller coaster that gives you a high and this time it's gonna be different at the beginning and leaves you low with a churning stomach, nausea and vomit on your new shirt again and again. You deserve better. And you are better than that. I hope you know that. I so deeply, deeply hope that you know that, and if not yet undertaken, that you make the moves necessary to step out of the path you were pushed into and into the life and direction you deserve and desire. I know this letter might contain a little lack of structure, but it's just as scattered as my memories, you know. But I want you to know that you are remembered. Not for what they tried to make you believe was true and real. You remain remembered for the right reasons. And you matter. You might have been bent, but you're not broken. You're like bamboo. Please remember that. Love, Gina. Sorry again for tripping and slipping over the words. But yeah, sometimes it's not so easy. And as said, I don't know how you felt while listening to it, or if you already have the book, how you felt while reading it. To me, it's not always, it depends on the mood, obviously, but sometimes it's still moving to read these stories, you know, because there's still a lot of emotion that I poured into the stories, and so when I read them again, it's like they reflect back. Maybe it's just my thing because I'm connected differently to the work than you are, obviously, because I produced it and you consume it. But please let me know, you know, as an artist, you basically live from the feedback that you get, because I have no idea which results one of the stories or one of the poems or which effects they can have if no one ever tells me, you know. It's like and that counts for everybody, you know, for a musician. If nobody ever tells them, you know what, I remember your song because we played it on our wedding and that's why there's so much emotion connected to your song, or you know what, your music helped me get through a bad phase, or a poet and writer like me, where people say, you know what, the story really moved me, but it gave me a new perspective, and it really helped me to re-narrate or review certain things, you know. Or sometimes, you know what, this didn't give me anything, you know. That's also a response, but without any response, it's really difficult to see the effects that your piece of art can have, basically. And yeah, so please let me know how you felt. I hope I didn't read too fast or too slow, or and I hope that my tripping tongue didn't distract too much. But yeah, please feel free to share your feedback. It means a lot to me, you know. Every feedback I get means a lot to me, even the harsh ones, you know. I had people, male friends of mine, actually react upon one of the stories contained in the book. No Victim it's called, to be precise. And I had male friends of mine who told me, wow, this was a punch in the face. And I said, yeah, it was supposed to be. Sorry. And I also had another male friend who read the story and who said I had to stop reading in between because it was just too moving. And that's also a feedback, you know, because as a writer, you have to know once the story is out there, it's not your story anymore. So the moment it's in the hands of the readers, you, of course, while writing, you have a certain idea of what it might do or which reaction you would like to create, and you can, you know, work a little bit towards that direction. But whether it actually takes the reader where you think it's going to take them, you will never know unless your readers tell you. So yeah, just know that your feedback is really appreciated. So one last pair of poem and prose I'd suggest. I just realized I was looking like a panda with the makeup beneath my eyes, but yeah, welcome to an authentic book reading. Yeah, and if you haven't put makeup on for quite a long time, it seems like you need to retrain. So whatever. The next poem I'm going to read to you is called Battle Cry, My War. And the connected story is High Up on the Hilltop. So first we go to page 170. And I have to concentrate. I hope I don't slip because this is a rather fast-paced poem. Let's see how this is going. If not, I'm going to restart, and I hope you bear with me. Everyone who ever had to read a poem aloud in front of class, or whoever went to a poetry slam or whatever, might know what I'm struggling with right now. Or whether you ever had to give a presentation in front of your colleagues at work or at university or wherever. Yeah, public speaking, huh? Yeah, you will understand me, and I hope you bear with me and have a little patience. So, Battle Cry, or My War. My war is in my chest, rifles rattling, rarely rest, the bursting flames down in my soul, the constant search for sense taking its toll. Demons dawning behind the sunset, so I have to set everything on one card, search and find my heart. My art, my armor and my shield, my love, my army knows to wield the verbal sword, the means to heal. I got my team on, my angels and my demons, together as an entourage. I wear uniqueness as my camouflage. Hear me roar and wonder why, every breath a battle cry, against the box walls caving in, enough of giving up and giving in. I slice the silence with a scream and rise to heights I've never been, cut the chains and conquer reigns that have been mine but undermined by the constant combat in my chest, the breaking battle in my bones. No time to rest. It's time I take my throne. Little inside information or behind the scenes information. There's also a photo that is on my Instagram account from Norbert Josefsson, which fits to this poem. I have to say I really love this poem for the pace that it creates and for the strength and power it has. At least that's my personal opinion. But it's definitely not easy reading it, and especially aloud. Yeah. So now another little story. It's just 2 pages long. So if you're wondering how long the stories are, some of them are as short as this. So High Up on the Hilltop. She always felt good sitting high up on a hilltop, where no one and nothing could touch her. Not because she wanted to feel godlike, but being too human had always broken her, ripped her heart apart, the pieces of which then lay scattered across the place or were tucked nicely into the pockets of others. She had always had a tendency to be found in the niches, on the periphery, like a loose star at the edge of their system. Sorry, Ondaatje, for taking your phrase, just like you took his name as a lean word referring to Rudyard. It's my deepest appreciation and admiration of your work, and this sentence has stuck with me ever since. The problem is that as much as detachment holds a form of freedom, as much does it mean loneliness. That's what no one tells you when you're offered a contract with creativity, because it's written in the small print. By signing this form with the blood of your heart, you agree to coping with the feeling of loneliness on a regular basis. And as much space as this detached freedom offers, builds and expands, as much does it add to the difficulty of attaching again when someone knocks at your door and asks to enter, or invites you to visit them, or wants to explore and build new places and spaces with you. So she remains there, atop, the constant observer, rarely ever a participant. You'll find her in the niches, alone by the sea or out in the woods. Mindful, heart warm, hands cold, fingers smudged with ink. At least well equipped with pen and paper as props to sit in solitude and to linger in loneliness. There is no door to be knocked at. But if you climb up the hill or wander through the dunes or walk through the woods, she'll let you sit with her, wander with her, walk with her. At least for a while. Because loneliness can also creep up in company. And that's the worst version of it. Yeah. So much about loneliness. I think that should be enough for now. It was a little insight into the book. I hope you enjoyed it. I said that there are longer stories and longer poems, but also more triggering stories and poems in it. So as the disclaimer already said, and as was stated in the intro, my working title of the book really was Pain, Loss and Grief. And I had to find another title because, actually I was asked, who's gonna buy a book with that title? I said that I'm pretty sure there are people who are gonna buy it, but maybe it's not my target audience, I don't know. But but it deals with pain, loss, grief, with the struggling moments of life. But just as my first book, labeled Love, was connected to life through its structure, like how you meet people, you get a snapshot of that evening when you meet them, and then you meet them 3 weeks later and you take a snapshot of your time together. And through all these snapshots, you puzzle your picture of a person. You know, that's what we do in real life, and I wanted to represent that in the structure of my first book. As much is this book, my second book, connected to life through the stories and the emotions that it contains. At least that was my deepest aim, to make something relatable. And just polishing pictures of a perfected life and everything is great, and pushing all the dark sides aside, or as said in the intro, marketing them, or and styling them up to something that they were not, to me felt not as authentic as it could be. And we struggle, we struggle and we suffer, and suffering and struggling is part of life in a certain way. And I think these stories deserve space. They shouldn't be necessarily the main narration of your life. You know, you shouldn't define yourself by the struggle or by the suffering that you go through or that you went through. This is not you, but it was part of your journey, or it is part of your journey, and therefore I think it deserves to be told. And that's why I said I want to write these stories. I'm not the first one, and I won't be the last one writing about these topics and writing stories and poems about it. You know, I'm well aware of that. It's not like the idea of writing about these struggles and about these darker sides of life, so to say, or sometimes really darker sides of life, it's not something originally Laventura made, you know. But I wanted to write these stories, and of course, what's a book that's not read, you know? And of course I would love you to read them, you know. I would really appreciate that, but I also understand that depending on the mood or situation that you're in, that you might not be able to read it or to read it straight away. Nevertheless, you know, you can also buy the book right now and read it in 10 years. You know how many books I have in my shelf for 5 years and then I read them? Some of them I have in my shelf for 20 years and I haven't read them yet. But nevertheless, they are there, and when the right time comes, it will fall onto my lap or into my hands again, and I'm going to read the book. You know, sometimes the book has to ripen, or I, as a person, have to ripen to be capable of reading it and understanding the message of it. And just know that every purchase of the book and also of the clothing line is and also mugs and bags and other accessories, little buttons, stickers and whatnot, does something good, because as said, 25% of my earnings will go to mental health institutions that help people who are struggling, people who could be one of the characters in this book. And so I totally understand that it's a special topic and that it's not something that many people jump onto, like, this is the new book, but from her, or of course you pick your books according to your mood, according to your preferences. But even if it's not to your taste and not to your preference, or you don't feel like reading that in English, you can wait for the German version, working on it. But also maybe you know someone who would like to read it. Maybe you know someone, I don't know, maybe someone is a lecturer and gives courses on something, and you think that one particular story might be interesting to them and their course or workshop or whatever they are working with. Please feel free to recommend it, to send some information, to send the Amazon link to your friends and acquaintances. Also this book reading, if you want to, please feel free to share. That would really mean the world to me, because as said, what's a book that's not read? And as said, I'm a self-published author, so there is no big marketing agency or PR and marketing department behind me. I have to spread the word myself and trust in and hope for my audience to spread the word again, and to have this effect, because I don't have a team who would do that for me. So if you like the things that an artist does, and I say that in general, whether it's me and my content, or a musician that you follow, or anybody else, especially in times like these, but also in general, support for artists can be as simple as sharing a post, sending a link to a video to someone who might be interested, purchasing their items, of course, or just leaving them a note saying, I love your music, or I just bought your book. It really means a lot. And also the mental health aspect is not just important right now in a situation like that. The book was written way before, okay, not way before, but sometime before the pandemic was even a topic in the news. So it was published during 2020, yes, in summer 2020, but it is not related to that, but to mental health in general. But this topic is important right now, and I know that there are many, many people who are seeking help right now. So I already managed to collect some money through the clothing purchases and book purchases last year, and they were so happy when I donated the money. They really, it wasn't a big amount, it was a really small amount, but they were so happy. And because especially now many people come in and search for help, and so if I can support them, I know that by supporting this institution I support other people, struggling people. And so basically having this donation plan is my way of using my creativity to give something back to society, if that makes any sense to you. I don't know whether I could explain it in an understandable manner, but yeah, it's important to me. But of course, I can spread the word as much as it's possible for me, but that's why I ask you if you know someone who might be interested in it, or even if you say, okay, they don't read in English, but they love shirts with prints on it, or they collect mugs with beautiful design or whatever, you know, everything helps. Every little thing can make a huge difference. That's all I'm saying. So thanks for your support. Thanks to everyone who already purchased the book and gave me feedback. It means the world to me. Thanks again to all the people who supported me during the writing process, to everyone who caught me when I was empty or like lacking energy after having written it. Thanks to everyone who had the patience to wait for new content from my side to be produced. And yeah, to Norman for designing the whole clothing designs, the spreadshop designs. This project really means a lot to me. It is very, very close to my heart because it has a purpose. And I'm so glad that I was able to follow that idea and to make that idea a plan to say, I want this to have an impact, you know, not just on the readers, but I want to do something good with the creative output that I produce. And I'm so glad for the support that I got from the graphic designer Norman, from all the people who said, okay, it's out now, I'm gonna buy it right now. I don't know whether I'm gonna read it straight away, but I'm gonna buy it. I just want to show you my support. You know, it just means a lot to me. I even have friends who never read anything in English, but they purchased the book because they said, we know how much it means to you and we appreciate your aim with it. And seriously, that moves me to my heart, because I mean, would you buy a book that you know you're never gonna read? Yeah, that really means a lot to me, and I hope you all know that. I know I say that a lot, but I hope through my words and my virtual presence and my gestures, you can really understand how much it means to me, and how much it means to me that you sit here now. Sorry, battery. Yeah, how much it means to me that you're sitting here through the live premiere, listening to it, taking your time, and thanks for joining me. Thanks for your questions. If you have any further questions, as said, drop it in the comments below or find your way through websites and social media, you're gonna find a way to contact me and let me know if you have any other questions or anything else concerning writing, books, or author life. Yeah, so thank you so much for your time. I'm happy that you were here, and yeah, even if you haven't made it to the premiere, I hope you enjoyed watching this video and listening to the stories and to the little bit of background information that I shared. And yeah, please take care of yourself, stay sound, stay safe, stay healthy. And I appreciate you. I appreciate your support. Your support matters. You matter. Bye bye.